Hey scrappers, if you're looking to figure out what materials you should sell this week or hold this week, now is the time to do it. Our weekly report is going to give you that information, up-to-date market news, pricing. Let's get right into it and we'll talk about it inside. Hey scrappers, it's Tom at iScrap, and today is Wednesday, June 21st, 2023. Hopefully you are doing well, enjoying some of these little price bumps we've been getting. We've been checking out a lot of the posted prices on the website, so don't forget to go to iScrapMap.com, click on that prices tab, and you're going to be able to see all types of different materials. Here's a couple of different ones that you can just kind of check out. Bear Bright reported prices week over week. We've seen like a 16% increase on some of those numbers. That just shows that copper increase that we talked about, right, where we saw a 25-cent increase, is starting to hit the markets, because not only did that increase happen, it started to stabilize. So people are reporting more prices, and you're starting to see some of these numbers jumping. So, Bear Bright national average over $3 per pound right now. That's a really strong number. You can see some of the prices here: 303, 305, 315, 270, 320. Lots of different ranges, but look at the dates. These are recent dates where people sold their scrap. So keep checking these things out. But let's talk about some of the markets right now. I'm going to start talking about the aluminum markets. And I read an article this week, and it was talking about the London Metal Exchange and the aluminum stocks in the London Metal Exchange. Now, aluminum prices have been relatively steady over the last couple of months after the decline that we saw earlier this year. And last year, with the Russian-Ukrainian conflict beginning, there was a lot of disruptions in the markets, right? And there was problems that popped up from that. And one of the problems were that many countries throughout the world said they weren't going to buy Russian commodities, whether it was oil, gas, or metals. Well, here we are. The London Metal Exchange has thousands of tons of copper and aluminum and all these other grades, zinc, inside of their warehouses, quote unquote, sometimes digital or virtual, or sometimes physical, but in different locations. And the number I read the other day is that right now, 68% of the aluminum inside of those warehouses is originated from Russia. Now, why is that important? That's important because I don't know where the prices are going to go from here. Because where I kind of look is how is that going to affect the scrap markets? So if aluminum is from Russia, and 2/3 of it in LME is from Russia right now, how is that going to be purchased, to make new products? Are the Chinese going to be buying that material? Are people in Europe going to be saying, no, I don't want it, we only want non-Russian aluminum? How are they going to tell? What if Russian aluminum makes its way into different automakers? What if Tesla or someone starts making more of their cars, or Ford or GM or any of these auto dealers, and they've condoned some of the conflicts that are going on, and all of a sudden Russian aluminum makes their way into their products? And that could be from cars, it could be to phones or electronics or other things. So we have this problem right now, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens, because in my opinion, if you start to see pushback from the public against major companies that are using lots of aluminum, that actually could help the scrap prices here in the United States, because now you're going to need more material to be originated in the United States, which could push more of those prices up. We haven't seen it happen. I mean, here's an average price right now, 43 cents across the board for different aluminum scraps right now. But it could start to happen over the coming months. And it's just something I've read about that I wanted to kind of tie in and talk about for a little while. Other markets on the copper side of things, copper's still trading pretty strong. This morning it was down a few cents, trading at $3.85, but we're still seeing these price increases going all over the place. And you can see some of the prices right on iScrapApp.com or on the app itself. And you have some really nice prices that are going out there. Number one tubing, for instance, averaging $2.90 with a bunch of really good prices you can see posted over $3 per pound for people across all areas of the country. Now, unfortunately, what we are starting to see is more of those Midwest and Mid East numbers. That middle of the country number is continuing to be down, and that shouldn't be much of a surprise considering the trucking, the logistics, the transport is much harder from those areas of the country. So when we see some of the prices, sometimes you might want to be grateful if you're on an East or a West Coast that your prices are a little higher. And of course, everyone always wants more, but it's nice to check some of these things out. So you go to the website and you can see some of these prices and then compare what you're getting. And if you don't see a recent price that you got, don't forget, just submit a price yourself. You can click on the button, type in the town and the state that you're in, and boom, just like this, you can select a slew of metals and post it. It takes less than 30 seconds to post 2 or 3 metals. So, with hundreds to choose from, hopefully this will help you out as well. What else is going on? Copper trading strong, still about 25 cents higher than it was, a few cents off the recent highs that we saw, but still strong numbers. I'm still expecting some of these numbers to decrease going into the summer because there's not enough consumer sentiment that's making me overly optimistic. And I was reading an article this morning about the student loans and how student loans are going to get reenacted again, and people are going to have to start paying those back. I was just talking about this with Virginia a few minutes ago. All of a sudden, $5 to $10 billion a month that has now become discretionary spending by people, whether it's on trips, ordering food, going out to dinner, is now going to be going to student loan relief. So that's going to be taking money out of the market, which means that less products and goods are going to be bought, which will affect the metal prices over the coming months. The first 3 months, I don't expect to see a big decrease, which is mostly the summer, July, August, September, right? But going into that fourth quarter of 2023, we are going to start to see some of those numbers hitting the consumer markets. You're going to start to see people tapping into their credit cards more. And that's where we start to get into a financial pickle that could lead to a quicker recessionary pullback as we're starting to see. We're starting to see employers cut hours, and that's why scrapping is such a great part. Many of you are full-time scrappers, but many of you watch these videos because you're doing it part-time on the side, and this might be another way for you to continue to supplement some income and make more money. And we'd love to hear some of the stories about what you've done over the last few years and how you've made money on scrap. But as we're talking about stories, let me tell you my story of the week. This happened in 2007 or 2008. Saturday morning, super early. I was at the shop around 6 a.m. And across the parking lot from us, there's a guy that works on cars. And thankfully, he can vouch for me that this story happened. It's not purely scrap, but it happened in a scrap yard, so I'll tell it. We used to use old, cleaned out oil tanks to store different materials in before I expanded the operation. So if any of you have ever seen a big steel oil tank, they're actually used all over scrap yards for material storage because they're so big, they're so heavy that these larger forklifts can pick them up. They can be full of motors. Sometimes they cut them to make them into like scoops and they can load barges and things. But we used to use them laid down, right? Once they were laid down, we had 3 next to each other. We would have like our clean aluminum, our sheet aluminum, and then like long copper pipes. We'd have them stacked. So it was 6 o'clock Saturday morning. I'm sitting there opening up the shop, and a deer runs in front of the shop. So this buck, and it was a buck, had antlers. I wish I had like a cell phone that actually had a camera back then, because that was kind of pre-iPhone. Runs into my shop. Okay, not only runs into my shop, runs in and jumps on top of one of the oil tanks that is just on its side. And I'm looking at it and I'm saying, what do I do right now? Because I'm not going to go near it because, I'm a little scared of things because I'm a wimp. And fortunately, the guy from across the parking lot was seeing it. And I'm like, his name is Keith. I go, Keith, what do I do right now? He's like, I don't know. I've never seen anything like this. So the deer got a little scared. I started to walk by it around the corner. It jumped off the top of the oil tank, hit the concrete floor. And of course, those hooves on the concrete floor started to slip. So its front legs kind of spurred out there. And then it ran out of the shop. And I'm just kind of looking, I'm like, no one is going to believe me if Keith wasn't here. So if you really want to hear the story live, you're welcome to come to Rockaway Recycling. I'll show you where everything happened. And I even still have Keith working across the parking lot to vouch for me that a deer came to scrap with us, and it was right around Christmas time. So I always joke that it was Rudolph popping in there. So let's go back to the scrap markets. Steel prices have increased. We've now seen light iron go up about $50 per ton over the last 8 weeks. Now, that steel price has not gone to every market. It's been more along the coasts with the larger barges that are getting loaded. And we're also seeing a little slowdown for some of the steel prices. You can see here light iron prices are up, averaging $136 a ton across the US right now. So, there's still the people that are getting, 5 cents a pound, 6 cents a pound, 130 a ton, but there's also bigger numbers, 200, 210 a ton that we're starting to see out there. And you can't see the entire price list. It would be too long sometimes, but steel prices are on the rise. Now, that may be a little bit of a short-term thing, considering there still isn't overly optimistic people going into the commercial building sector. And what I do see is more people in the residential sector, but they're still using wood. And they're getting rid of copper pipe, and they're using PEX, and they might need some wire, but of course that's not steel. So we're not talking major infrastructure pushes. And even though that infrastructure bill went in out of DC, that money really hasn't started to go out there. Many people might see the horrible bridge collapse down in Philadelphia and say, oh, they need steel for that. We're only talking about a couple hundred tons of I-beams. We're not talking about thousands of tons of I-beams, which is really what we need right now, is humongous growth. And I just don't see it coming from inside the United States. I see it coming from a different world developing country. And I've mentioned India before. What we are starting to see is more investments in India, which is a really good thing. We're starting to see more factories being built over there, whether they are to make microchips, work on Apple products, or even car manufacturers. Those are the stories we want, but we don't want to see those items exported from India. We want to see a lot of the people inside of India buying and using them. Why? They would be buying a lot of them for the first time. My in-laws are traveling abroad right now, and they're over in Thailand, and they tell me how poor the infrastructure is. Funny questions I asked them during FaceTime the other day on Father's Day, and they're like, you just see old buildings everywhere, old cars everywhere, old bicycles or motorbikes with these little, I think they're called tuk-tuks. They're old. Everything is old. And when you go somewhere and everything is old, that means that they don't have enough money to reinvest in their economy. And we need those countries to be able to have a major reinvestment like China did in the 1980s, 90s, and early 2000s for those steel prices to have a longer run at higher prices. That 2021 run that we saw was a fake run based off of the shutdown of 2020. So, while we saw prices going really high, it really wasn't a prolonged event. It was a short-term blip, just like catalytic converter prices in 2021. Talk about catalytic converters, the team over rrcats.com, we're seeing OEM catalytic converters decreasing, right? We're seeing the prices continue to be extremely recessed. And if you do want to hold on to any scrap, cats might be a good thing to hold on to right now. Some people generally like to flip their cats within a couple of days of getting them because it's kind of a quick dollar that you can get in. Dealing with our cats gives you a 10-day price lock, and you also get free shipping on OEM cats. But if you do want to look in the markets right now, we are seeing market prices at multi-year lows. And unfortunately, that's going to hurt the cat markets. Rhodium, platinum, and palladium are all down in recent weeks. Platinum down 2.5% week over week. Palladium down 1.8% week over week. Rhodium down 7% week over week. That's just in the last 7 days. So these are things that have affected the catalytic converter prices and the markets. And it's not what we want to see, but unfortunately it's what we're getting right now. But if you're still looking to sell them, you always can. We only give you recommendations. We don't give you, instructions. You get to make all of your own choices when it comes to these things. A couple of articles that we've been reading recently and posts online talked about different things that you guys want to see us taking apart. So a couple of notes that we had, we're going to start talking about some lawnmowers, different types of lawnmowers, both ride-on and push lawnmowers. So you can watch out for some of those videos that are coming. If there's another item that you'd like us to take apart and show you what to do or how to maximize your scrap profit, please comment below as well. We're also going to talk about different tin-based solders, how solder could affect copper prices for number twos or brass. We're going to go into those things, and we'll continue to learn more about the EV market and the battery recycling market, as we are starting to see a little more momentum going into these markets. But most scrapyards that I've talked to continue to say no. Even auto wreckers, no, they don't want Priuses or Teslas with the batteries right now because the liabilities are just too high and the recycling downward chains are just not there yet. So overall, scrappers, markets have been steady week over week. Copper prices slightly down over the week, but not really badly. We've seen more reported prices showing an increase in the copper prices. Steel markets are up as well. So we are seeing some life in the markets. We're not just kind of, just zombieing our way across in the month of June going into July. But next week, we'll update you on a couple more things. Any questions for us? Comment below. And until next week, I'll scrap you later.
Thanks for checking out this scrap video. For more exclusive scrap video content, please become a YouTube member of our channel today. Thank you, and I'll scrap you later.